Right,
Episode 4. Today, we're going to be talking about secularism.
Shots fired, baby. I can't wait for this one. You can start it because you're more like the world than me, so.
I'm a free thinker.
Just joshing.
Secularism. So this is a good, fun topic we want to discuss, because there's a lot of things that we can openly talk about that are easily debatable within the church, of viewed as okay versus maybe not so much.
Mm-hmm.
A bit of towing the lines, if you would.
Yeah. So, so the way that this one came up is we had our like little group night with our church, and we decided to play this lovely game of put questions in the hat.
What was that game called?
I don't know. I just made that up, though. Put questions in the hat.
I think he did make it up at the end of the night. We just
Yeah, we did. We're like, why don't everybody just throw questions in the hat, and then you draw, and we have to pick a person, I think. Yeah, pick a person to answer the question. And it was one of those deals where it was like, I don't know, it was kind of like basic questions. Some to just try to make Miles and Dee feel very uncomfortable with, I don't know, whatever we were asking. Of course, that's me being inappropriate. But who did you ask about?
I went like super spiritual. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, you did. Maybe it was me talking about like, can you listen to secular music as a Christian? And that's kind of where it started.
Yes.
I think so, too. Some people don't. But it's one of those deals where no, but it really is like widely debated in the church, where it's like you have to be, for people who are new in the faith, I think it can be a stumbling block to not look somewhat like the world. We are called to be set apart, and that's undebatable. We're called to be set apart. We're called to be different from the world, be in the world, but not of the world, as you've heard it put. But I don't think, personal opinion here, music. We'll just start with music. This is my opinion. You can listen to music. It's very different. If you go listen to Boosie, you're probably dishonoring the Lord for sure. But if I go listen to Brian McKnight sing about his wife, I don't really see the issue with that. Now, it's not directly honoring God, but then in my mind, and please hear me, I am a man wrestling with my own thoughts. If he's using the gift that God gave him to provide something beautiful, is that not any different than going to an art gallery, admiring or buying a portrait that isn't of Jesus, or that isn't of the cross, or isn't a Christian art piece? Is it similar to that? Or is
I don't
that
know. It's kind of like finding like
justification.
Yeah, it's like towing a fine. I get what you're saying, because to me, it's like towing the fine line of being like hyper religious.
Yeah,
there's definitely a balance, and I think you got to be. One, to your point, you can talk about Brian McKnight honoring his wife, but for somebody else, like, that might be a trigger for him to think about other women in Prosper, Texas.
So do you feel like that'd be more? Uh-oh, that's super shots fired. Do you feel like? I guess what I'm trying to ask is, does personal conviction play a part in that? I can have 2 beers and not go over the limit, but I do have friends that if they have a sip of beer, smashed.
Yeah. I mean, I look at my own walk, and there's things that, one, on the music topic genre, there's certain genres that I just don't listen to anymore.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not getting down on hip hop. I'm not getting down on like a lot of like heavier music I used to listen to.
And then having daughters too.
And then having daughters, and you know what I mean? Or even just,
Yes.
I mean, that's a whole, no.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I love country music.
Mm-hmm.
I love a lot of music. You know what I mean? And to me, I think there's a balance. And I don't want to just be that guy that's always saying there's a balance to everything. But there's a time and a place to where you obviously don't want to, like, I've caught myself sometimes like turning off my radio in the car, because I have listened to more music than I have probably spent with the Lord that day.
100%.
And when you have little ones and you have a marriage, you got kids, you know what I mean, running around, like, I realize, like, I'm just trying to get a release of just like solidarity there. Like, just give me my solitude for this 30-minute drive until I get home. And I go back into dad mode, where it's like choosing those moments to actually interact with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you are driving your car, even if you can't just get that time alone.
Yeah.
I think it's realizing that.
Yeah.
Like for me, I have a rule. Like when I go to work, like I don't even listen to worship music because it's easy for me to, kind of like ignore the Lord almost. Where I'm just like singing the song. Now I just drive and I'm just praying.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily I'm just trying to check off a list, but I'm trying to be intentional with the time that I do have. So then flip it. Then once I get to work, I get through my prayers. So like I'm just trying to like designate that time. I get to work and get out of the car. That's when I might switch in something for the next like 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's pretty convicting. I'm very good about putting my headphones on and listening to like stand-up comedy while I do the dishes.
Yeah.
I don't do well in stillness. And that's kind of what you need to have a relationship with the Lord. You know what I mean? But I definitely distract myself from being bored and can see where even the innocence of watching a podcast about somebody having an encounter with the Lord can be a distraction from the Lord.
Sure.
Where it's like a double-edged sword, where it's like I am learning about the Lord, but I'm not spending my time with the Lord.
But
I'm learning about somebody else's time with the Lord.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad thing, but it's like if all my time is distracted with something else, that actually makes a lot of sense. I like that.
Yeah. And it's funny because I was coming into this like episode matching you and I sounded like completely different when I said it, but it is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have no problem with country music, or I should just say non-worship music.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest, like there's a lot of worship music and I'm like, dude, this is just like very redundant.
Trash.
Yeah.
It's okay. We can say
like, it's like,
it's our podcast.
it's boring, dude. It's like the
nobody.
same 3 chords.
Yeah.
You know, and then I get into this like religious thing. It's so easy to go in. It's like, well, you just must not love the Lord. Like you're just craving the world. Like, no, I'm not. You know what I mean? No, I'm
just
not.
talking to yourself.
Yeah.
But I've been arguing with myself in the car.
I get mad at myself. I'm like, hey, shut up.
No, the same way. That is wild.
But and then I think about it too. It's like what I mean, I always bring it back to my kids because I feel like that's where the Lord's really speaking to me.
Yeah.
Especially as growing up with what I didn't get from my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have that gift now to pour into my son.
Yeah.
But I like to have fun with my son too, and he knows like a lot of like Blink-182 songs,
Mm-hmm.
or like there's another band called Story So Far that he really loves.
Yep.
And they're not like, I mean, not all Blink songs, trust me. Like there are some that are off limits. There's some that I'm like, whoa, we're turning that off right now.
Yeah, buddy.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, Millie was in the car the other day singing that selling my soul, working all day. Yeah, so if you know the lyrics, you know what comes up. Then we look back and she's like, and I'm like, yeah, see, that's okay. We probably don't need to listen to that one while she's listening anymore.
So I think there's like
a smooth little S word in there. I'm like, okay, turn it off.
Yeah. No shiitake mushrooms. You know what I'm saying?
That's what it is. Okay, so let me ask you this, because this popped up. Just doing some, I don't say research because I'm like, you know what I mean. I was looking around, and it was talking about
around.
I'm just hanging around. Paul talking about essentially. Let me just read it first. So it says, if others share this rightful claim on you, do not we even more? I can't. Anyway, I sound like an idiot sometimes, but nevertheless, we have not made use of this right, but we endure anything rather than put an obstacle in the way of the gospel of Christ. Whenever I read that and started doing a little bit of digging on what that meant, Paul was, if it dishonored the Lord, he didn't do it. If he felt like it dishonored the Lord, he didn't do it. But he was okay diving into some customs and cultures that he wasn't a part of in order to further the gospel. So hot topic button, when former pastor Tim Ross was talking about cussing, I disagree with him being okay with cussing, because I do think it defiles you, but I kind of agree with the thought process that he had of if I'm furthering the gospel with people, that can kind of justify me using some foul language. Now, I still don't think you should cuss. I am convicted when I cuss. I think we are called to be set apart. It's not what goes into a man, but what comes out of a man that defiles him. I disagree with a hard line that cussing is a good thing. But if you're able to, I shouldn't say you are able to win souls, but if you're able to get across to somebody the gospel that would not listen to you if you didn't use even if it's on accident, the S word. Let's say somebody witnessed you like get mad and it's like, well, you cuss. And it's like, well, yeah, but that could also play into a part of how I'm just human. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that cussing is a good thing by any means, but I can understand the thought process that he had based off of this scripture, that sometimes furthering the gospel is a little bit more important than looking the right way. Does that make sense? Because the way it hit me was, the old me would have said, I don't want to cuss because I don't want other people to look at me in a bad way.
Yeah.
Versus me being personally convicted by cussing because I know that God's called me to be set apart. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think it goes back to what you and I were talking about just a little bit earlier. It's like, don't be weird. Like, don't be that weird Christian. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you can be, like, we should be relatable.
Yeah, you can be you.
You know what I mean? Like, especially with testimonies. Like, the testimony is not just a one-time thing. It's continuous.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we should always, and we have lived long enough in this world to have engaged in enough worldly affairs and worldly things to. So yeah, I understand what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
And
that's what I'm trying to say. I understand what he's trying to say.
Yeah, I understand. I completely get it.
But yeah.
But at the same time, like, I don't know if I would. I don't know if I would take that route.
I would not.
Because I'll be completely honest. Like, I can have a pretty loose mouth sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, I am very much convicted about it, but there are just some things that fly out, and I'm like,
it's like, oh,
sorry,
come on, man.
You know,
that Scorpio.
Yeah,
Get over here.
But I'm working through that. But there's got to be enough saltiness there to where you're not looking like somebody to where, because it's very easy to be a chameleon in that sense, but you're not really affecting, because I feel like you can get into that weird place where you're like kind of like enabling it. Then it's like this cool thing. I'm like, I'm the Christian that cusses.
Yeah. Now,
you know what I mean?
It definitely had that tone when I was listening to some of like the justification of it, but it was one of those things that I was like, having compassion for people, I can see why he thinks that way.
Sure.
I can see it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I agree with it. Doesn't mean I condone it.
Yeah.
But I understand what he's saying.
And you know what the great thing about the Lord is, that regardless of our intentions in that, like, he still works things out.
Yeah.
And he's still going to fulfill his purpose despite, you know, our motives or our intentions. So that's great. But that's not a statement to, like, a blanket statement of like abusing grace.
Yeah.
Or abusing any type of role that you have. And I think it comes in levels too, right? It's like, when you talk about maturity, there are things that maybe the Lord would, not maybe, but there are things that you do when you are first a Christian that there's not so much of a tightrope on as you walk into maturity. Like, there's more accountability. It's no different than fathering your daughters.
Yeah.
Or my son or my daughter. You know, there's certain things that they could do at 3 months or 6 months. I should 3 months. I mean, what are they doing at 3 months?
Cartwheels.
There's certain
Cartwheels and
things.
handstands. I have watched 7,000.
There's certain things that he could get away with when he was 1.5 years versus when he's 3.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So he's just, as he's maturing, he's understanding, and it's just finding that. And I think that goes for kind of dabbling in the world. You know, I think that each person is going to be convicted at certain points. Right. So if that's something I'm asking the Lord to reveal to me, like, that to me is where the fear of the Lord comes in.
Yeah.
Because you know what, I was the guy, like, I'll have 1 or 2 beers. Like, yeah, I like beer. Yeah, for sure. You know what I mean? But I was just having a conversation with Miles not too long ago, and it's like, when the Lord starts to call you into roles, though, like, there's a responsibility to that.
100%.
You know? Yeah. And that carries a different weight. There's a different accountability in recognizing that.
That is true.
And it even talks about, like, the Bible, like, working your faith out, like, and it takes it in the context of, like, practicing. Because how else are we going to, like, expect to do anything if we are not practicing what we preach, essentially? You know what I mean? And people are like, that just sounds religious. It's like, no, like, you got to instill things. It's no different than, like, an athlete spending however many hours a week into his craft to perfect it, to where it's like that becomes like second nature then. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, to really be, like, attuned to what Scripture is saying, what the Spirit is saying, like, that takes time in and time out. So if we are constantly lukewarm, just barely tipping our toes in it, you know, and then expecting things to change or any of this, it's like, we're not going to look any different from the world. We're not going to, like, our words aren't going to have any weight. Yeah. And I think we find ourselves in that situation a lot. And I know I have.
Yeah.
Like there's been times where I just like really didn't have much to say.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
that was convicting in itself. And it's like, I probably should.
Yeah.
Like, I don't look different than this dude.
Yep.
And I'm over here judging him.
Yeah. 100%.
You know, what does that say about me? Like, that's pretty revealing and sobering.
Very. All the above. I agree. It's, I don't know, man. That one's a hard one just because I've heard people say, I don't really want to be Christian because I feel like I live a better life than that person that claims to be a Christian. And I think it goes back to kind of like you said, a responsibility of like, once you put on that cape, so to speak, no, I shouldn't say cape is probably bad, but once you put on like that persona, like there really is a responsibility to look different. And I mean, I've heard people talk about how like, I can cuss and it's not like cussing wasn't used back. Like, yeah, the F word wasn't used, but speaking bad or in a poor way is, I mean, that's more of a cultural change than it is anything else.
Yeah.
You know, because calling somebody a pig in 1850 is probably the same thing as saying F you, now.
We're so loose now.
With like what something
like
actually means.
Culture's so casual now.
Yes.
You look at
that's a good
what
word
people
for it, yeah.
wear to work. You look at what people say, what's accepted in schools now.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
okay, we're going to a little bit of a tangent, but there was a kid that identified as like a Furby. What do you call that? Yeah.
What's fur?
Yeah. So he literally wore a tail, and his mom was going to sue the school district. I won't say anywhere so we don't get sued, but was going to sue the school district because they wouldn't put litter boxes in the bathroom for him. So casual might be an understatement. I mean, it's like you do what you want, when you want, how you want. And it's like, this boy ain't no cat. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Anyways, bro.
No,
a little bit of a tangent, but that's.
I mean, I would. Yeah.
You know. But anyway,
no.
But that's the culture that we live in now. So it's like, it's really not that hard to. It's not that hard to look different, but we just need to be more consistent as Christians. Because I mean, and like you said, that's part of sanctification, where it's like you have these old habits that you go back to by the minute, and then it's by the hour, right? And then it's by the day. Then you go by the month. And then it's like by the year. And then hopefully after a couple of years of like ironing out that thing you want to change or not look like the world in, you're done with. You know, the Lord has delivered you from it. And it may not be instant, but it could be over 3 years that you wrestle with the same sin.
Sure.
And then, you're finally done with it. But that's also goes into like the secularism piece of it, because I mean, there's music, there's art. I mean, there's life. The way that you party should be a whole lot different than you partying in college.
For sure.
Ours looks like get-togethers with our community of all married couples and we're playing like innocent little games. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So there needs to be a gradual increase is basically what I'm trying to say. Like to where we are looking more like Jesus every single day. And sometimes it looks like refining your language. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't always have to be cussing. It could be gossip. It could be slander. It could be just being just a little bit loose, a little bit derogatory, inappropriate, whatever it is, and just kind of buttoning that stuff up.
Yeah.
It's not just cussing. And I think that's one thing too, like in the cultures, we tend to like harp on this one deal as like the big sin.
Well, everybody's got an opinion now. Like all these platforms, you can just get on, like ours, like right now,
today,
like
to
in
this
this
day.
moment.
Right now.
But it's so easy. Like it's so easy in today's culture to just spot out everything that you don't like.
Yeah.
When really you're kind of the problem.
Yeah.
Like,
yes. It's just
you're
self-centered.
kind of the issue.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of hard conversations, because even coming to this church, it's like, well, our last church didn't give us this and didn't give us that. And we were like
you're the only ones in church. It's like, bro.
Yeah. And we were pretty loose on that, to be honest. Like it was a weird season. A weird year and a half for us anyways. Mm-hmm. Like it was just, you literally felt like you were just wandering in the wilderness. It's like, we can't find people to save our lives, bro.
Yeah.
Like there's just nobody.
Yep.
And I'll put myself at blame for that too. Like there was times where I just like straight up, I'm like, I'm just not going today. Like I can't,
mm-hmm.
And the Lord really brought me through it. And I see the importance of it, because I'm that guy that was the problem.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I was the guy that would take allow something that I didn't like
mm-hmm.
and I would blanket the entire church and blame somebody else for it because it didn't fit something that I wanted.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? Rather than showing up and potentially being used by the Lord for the one person, like man, you don't just go to church. You know what I mean? You can't, and that's kind of like going to church and just using it as like the one thing that fills you up for the week and expect your tank to run on full. That should be supplemental to your daily walk with the Lord. Like that's where we come together corporately and we get built up together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the real work starts after.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was a really good thing of like, what really challenged me lately is anytime I go to pray, anytime I go to church, anytime I read my Bible, anything, don't let me leave here unchanged.
Yeah.
And that's been a topic that we've been talking about lately, right? When our men's group and stuff like that. But that really stuck with me because I think that happens. It shifts something mentally to where now it's like setting your mind, you know, to understanding really. Like I'm literally setting my mind to wisdom, to truth. Like I want to find.
Yeah.
Things start to change. And I don't think we can expect that convictions aren't going to follow after that. You can't not expect things that aren't going to start shifting when you pray and like rambling off random prayers and stuff like that. Like
just,
because we might be rebuking something that the Lord's allowing to happen to shape us.
That's true. Yeah. Do you feel like conviction is a soul, how am I trying to say this? Do you feel like conviction is the main way or only way you should look at, say, like secularism? Like, should I listen to this music? Oh, I'm not convicted. Because I have seen it. So I used to say, like, well, if I'm not convicted, then the Lord doesn't really want me to change it. But I could also see that as, I've used it as a cop-out to just do what I want to do.
Sure, you can use that as a crutch to just justify doing something that maybe you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, because the Lord definitly didn't want me to go have
and I think,
6 beers.
But I think even saying that, for real, like, am I convicted? I just got crushed, you know, at Rotolo's, and they have dollar beer night on Thursday.
Oh, listen to Metallica.
Yeah,
Lord.
Boy, pray for that man.
Oh, what a judgment.
No, but I think that's where community comes into it, though.
Yeah.
And I think that you can't just lean on your own understanding for that. And it might be a hard pill to swallow because you might hear something that you don't like.
That reoccurring theme.
You know what I mean?
Pride of like, no, I don't.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's like,
so true.
It's going to happen every time, though. Like,
yeah.
It is what it is, man.
Yeah. All right. So can we listen to music or not?
I think so.
I don't know.
I think so. You're starting to change now?
No, not at all. No, I still like.
I mean, I'm not going to like
with you. I'm not going to like listen to Bad Bunny concerts by any means.
I was going to say Peso Pluma.
I don't even know what that is. You won't find me at a Kanye or Drake concert.
Nah.
But I definitely like. I don't know, man. I've got like an 80-year-old soul, so any type of like bluesy, old sounding stuff, where you're talking about like the love of your life or hard times or whatever it is, like I don't see an issue with that. I don't think it's dishonoring the Lord by any means, but it's one of those deals where some people feel like if they're not only talking about Jesus, that they're dishonoring the Lord. But then I guess kind of to go back to like my first point was, can you do things that honor the Lord, like with your gifts? You know what I mean?
I was going to be my next question.
Yeah, because then it's like a job. Like if I'm not a pastor, am I dishonoring the Lord because I go sell medical devices? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or is it how you work and how you move in that industry that honors the Lord?
Well, it kind of goes back to like, whatever it is that your hand finds to do, do it under the Lord, like honor him in everything that you're doing. So
yeah.
It's a really easy question to flip back and forth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know if we're even going to be able to get to the bottom of that.
No, there won't be an answer to this
there
episode.
Won't
just
be.
to let y'all know right now, there's not going to be an answer. I think it's going to fall under like what you truly believe, but it's one of those
Plot
deals
twist.
where it's, for real. But it's one of those deals where it's like we just pick and choose in this world about like what is the big deal? Okay, so you can't listen to secular music, but you can go to the art museum and look at like new drawings, or can you watch drug lords on Netflix and be okay with that?
Right.
Or should you just watch I don't know, Christian movies? You know what I mean? Like you can use the same thing in different places and people's opinions will switch based off of that, but it's like, okay, Miles asked, he's getting so many shout outs right now. Like we should honestly have like 700 people next week at service. How many shout outs are? But it's one of those deals where it's like, he asked the question, is it honoring or is it dishonoring the Lord? And that has helped kind of clear some of that stuff up.
Sure.
Even though I'm still I don't think it dishonors the Lord to put some baby face on. I don't feel convicted about it. Even though I just talked about the conviction thing.
That boy goes from baby face to Brian McKnight. So
sorry, man.
That's all we got here for
I'm a light skinned lover.
Yeah, boy.
Just, you know what I'm saying?
Episode 4 out.
Secularism.